Hey guys, it's Zach. So with all the hoopla, not hoopa, but hoopla, going around with news of the Galar region not allowing any Pokemon featured outside of the Galar decks, like most people on the internet, it got me thinking. My first thought was a strange version of Papers, Please, featuring Pokemon, where Pokemon try to get through and you have to decide whether they're allowed or not allowed to come in to the Galar region. My second thought is if there was any Pokemon that has ever been featured in every regional dex. So I started looking into it. These Pokemon that are featured into every regional dex since their debut, I'm going to refer to as evergreen Pokemon. Pokemon that are self renewed to each new title and each new dex. I'm going to find a list of each Pokemon that is in every regional dex since their first generation they came out. Now, before starting, we do have to exclude the Unova decks because those games had only Pokemon that were introduced in that generation until you unlock the national decks. So there's no new Pokemon, there's no older Pokemon that are in the Unova decks other than Unova Pokemon. I'm also going to have to exclude the Let's Go games as well, being that that was only Gen 1 Pokemon, excluding the mythical Pokemon Meltan and Melmetal. Now, my first search was for a list of Pokemon and their dex numbers for every dex. This led me to an old Reddit post by user Zinfandel about him keeping track of his own national dex. This was a near complete spreadsheet of every Pokemon stats missing Pokemon like Zeraora and Meltan and Melmetal and their dex numbers. So what's important in this file is that we're looking at the dex numbers. In this file, you can see a dex number for each region. So this is where we will find what we need. Also, if you want to have a look at the spreadsheet, I'll leave a link in the description below. Make sure if you do want to use it, you make a copy of it, of the file for yourself and your own editing and tracking use. So I'm going to start at Generation 7 and go all the way back to Generation 1. Remember, the Pokemon featured on this list are Pokemon that are in each region's dex and not the national dex. So these are Pokemon that you can catch throughout the journey in each region. So let's get to work. Looking at Gen 7, and they're clearly all included because there hasn't been a game that's came out yet other than Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Since those games are featured in Alola, all the Alolan Pokemon are going to be in their decks and they haven't been excluded yet. So just to let you know, they're all technically included, but for my list, I'm not going to post any of them or bring them to the final number. So let's jump into the real list, going back to Gen 6. So when looking and hearing about these are Pokemon that have featured in the Kalos decks and the Alola decks. They haven't had much of a chance to be excluded yet, but it's still a small number, and I think it should be looked at. These Pokemon are the Talonflame line, the Pangrower line, Sylveon, Carbink, the Goodra line, Klefki, the Trevenant line, the Northern line, and Zygarde. Now, when I mention the Pokemon, I'm only going to talk about their evolutionary line. Instead of naming every single Pokemon from each generation, if they appear in one evolutionary line, that's what's going to be named. So, counting those Pokemon, it gives you 14 Pokemon, including their evolutions. So, next, let's take a look into Gen 5. The Gen 5 Pokemon are the Gigalith line, the Crocodile line, the Garbodor line, the Vanillix line, Emolga, and Alomomola, if I said that right. This adds 13 Pokemon. Now, looking back into Gen 4, we see Pokemon like the Drifblim line, Honchkrow, Bonsly, the Garchomp line, Munchlax, the Lucario line, Weavile, Magnezone, Leafeon and Glaceon, and Probopass. This list is interesting and telling. We only see 3 original Sinnoh lines, the others being evolutions from Pokemon that appeared in other generations. Either way, we have 15 Pokemon from Gen 4 to add to this evergreen list. Now, let's take a look onto Gen 3. Gen 3 is quite small as well. We have the Pelipper line, the Nosepass line, the Wishcast line, and Absol. This is very small compared to other generations. Only 6 Pokemon from this generation have appeared in each game's regional dex since. Next, I'm hoping for a bigger number when looking at Gen 2. These Pokemon from Gen 2 are Pichu and Crobat. That's it. Crobat and Pichu. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Crobat, but this is the only Pokemon from Generation 2 that has shown up in every regional dex, other than a Pokemon attached to the Pikachu line. I'm going to factor in the idea that Crobat is the end of the Zubat line, which is Pokemon's longest running troll in the Pokemon world. And Pichu is attached to Pikachu, so that makes it a no brainer. So here we are at the end of the line, Generation 1, where it all started. Which Pokemon have stood the test of time and has appeared in every region's dex since? Looking at this list, we have Pokemon like the Pikachu and Raichu line, well, duh, the Golbat line, the Golduck line, the Alakazam line, Machamp's line, Tentacruel's line, Golub's line, Seaking's line, and Gyarados' line. That brings 21 Pokemon from Kanto seeing itself on every dex. Now, that's 73 Pokemon in total of the evergreen Pokemon, the Pokemon that have appeared in each region's dex since their debut. If you don't count Alola's dex, that's a little over 9% of the national dex. So 9% of the national dex has appeared in every game since they started in their generation. If you exclude the 70 legendary mythical Pokemon and then also exclude the 11 Ultra Beasts, that brings the number of evergreen Pokemon to just about 10% of all Pokemon from the national dex. Now, this number does not include any of the Pokemon announced in Sword and Shield. So Grookey, Scorbunny, Sobble aren't being counted into these number of total Pokemon. Now, looking at this list is very interesting. Will these Pokemon continue being what I call evergreen Pokemon? According to an updated list on Cerebi, Raichu line, Machamp line, Seaking line, Gyarados line, Weavile line, Pelipper line, Driftoon line, Lucario line, Gigalith line, Garbodor line, Vanillix line, Pangoro line, Gruja line, and the Northern line have already been seen in Sword and Shield gameplay. That's 29 of the 73 evergreen Pokemon are already making its way into the Galar Dex and continuing the evergreen title. That's way more than the 10% that we've seen in the national dex. It's also good to note that Pokemon like Eevee and Snorlax are not evergreen Pokemon because of their exclusion in Hoenn, but their lines have made it on the list like Leafeon, Glaceon, and Munchlax, and are on the list for Sword and Shield as well. Are all of these evergreen Pokemon confirmed to be in Sword and Shield? No, not at all. But it does give us a good idea of what could be. When thinking about the National Dex issue, I'm bummed. I'm not upset. I'm excited to start a new adventure and hopefully find some new favorites. Cough, cough, Yamper, cough, cough. If my old favorites don't make it into the game, that's well and fine. Is all your favorite Pokemon from the first generation you ever played? If not, I hope you can look forward to the Galar region and finding new favorites there to help you transition to the lack of the national dex. When looking at the competitive debate of the limited decks, we'll see if Pokemon like the Tapus and Lando are in Galar. If they're there, I don't know how much they're trying to keep the meta fresh and changing it up. Anyways, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Don't forget to let me know how you feel about this list in the comments below. Is your favorite Pokemon an evergreen Pokemon? Once again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.